So if you want to turn to Song of Solomon, chapter 1, I'm going to begin with how the patient, ravished heart of God transforms us. Song of Solomon is one of those passages that it's hard to know how to read it. I just know as a young man, I kind of read it and giggled a little bit because I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be reading it. But since it was in the Bible, I thought, well, I'm just going to read it. It gives us a very glorious picture of human love. Of course, the Jewish people understand it as God's heart for the nation of Israel. But throughout the centuries, church fathers and Christian mystics and so many have seen in the Song of Solomon the interior experiential view of the emotional dimensions of discipleship. In other words, how does the lover woo you as his beloved? Individually. And what is the journey of maturity from an inexperienced disciple to a fully abandoned disciple? From someone who is kind of fascinated with the idea of God, but doesn't really trust God. They're still trying to prove some things about themselves to God, but they're learning how to simply receive his opinion of them and trust that wherever he says to go and whatever he says to do is worth going and doing, whether it's easy or hard, because that's the adventure of life together. And so Song of Solomon is really, it's very personal in that sense. It's an interior journey. And here's what I want to say in general, just to set men's hearts at ease and also speak directly to women. On the flip side of the coin, there's two significant metaphors Scripture gives. Actually, three that are all relational. When you read about the temple and us being living stones set in the temple, individual living stones in the living temple of God, that's a picture of our relationship to the Holy Spirit. We are filled by the Holy Spirit as the temple of God, and living stones form a corporate temple. As we relate to the Father, we're sons and daughters. And as we relate to the Son, who is the eternal bridegroom, we're a bride. So men are a part of the bridegroom and women are a part of the sons. Because there's a masculine dimension to how God made us. In the beginning, God said, let us make man in our image, male and female, he created them. You can't actually get a complete human picture of God's image with either male or female. The divine math is 1 + 1 = 1. And so out of that divine math, men are telling us something very direct about God's nature as our Father. He's masculine. C.S. Lewis said, God is so masculine that all of creation is feminine in comparison. He's just so masculine. He's so strong. He's the initiator. He's the supplier. He's the presiding force over all of the universe. And there's nothing that can compare to that. And the nearest way we can understand that then is, what a guy. He's the man. And men get to embody that in our own way in the male-female dynamic, but in the corporate sense of our relationship to the Son, he's still the man. And corporately, we are learning to love him as he deserves. But in terms of what the Father is doing, the Father is raising up sons, and that is appealing. The bridegroom dimension is training us to live with passionate, abandoned hearts, intimately surrendered to him. And that happens regardless of your gender. Men, you are meant to have a passionate love relationship with God. You're meant to know him in intimate ways. You're meant to be abandoned to his will. He calls the shots. He's the leader, and we learn to follow. So the bride to the bridegroom is cultivating the interior life at an emotional level. But when the father's raising up sons, that's appealing to dimensions of masculinity and authority that women are meant to be a part of. Men and women together are meant to relate to the Father as sons, and I can say sons and daughters, and that works, but I really want to make clear it's two different things. We're all sons of God in the authority we're meant to carry. And so women are a part of that, just like men are a part of the bride. You with me so far? So Song of Solomon gives us a chance to peek inside the delight and fear and mistakes and impact which the steady pursuit of an intensely masculine love has on the heart of us as the bride. I think most young girls dream of growing up and wearing that wedding dress, and there is such a sense of delight, all the Disney princesses and all that stuff playing in their heads. And some of that is, maybe culturally manipulative. But some of it is just the facts of life. It's the way men and women are designed. Little boys grow up, and I think I'm in Texas, so I can say this. They want to shoot guns. It was just absurd. The idea that a mother is going to take away, anything that a toy gun. Me and my brother just went out and found a stick shaped like a gun. We're going to do that one way or the other. And the little girls are going to twirl in their dresses and dream of being a princess. And both of those are so good. They're so simple. They're so beautiful. And that doesn't, some girls are like, well, that was never me. I was the tomboy climbing the tree and finding the stick with the gun, just like the boys. That's good. That's okay. I'm not trying to over categorize. I'm saying in general, he made us in distinct ways. And part of the design of the enemy, the strategy of the enemy, is to erase the image of God by making everything the same. All of the stuff related to gender confusion, there's real pain and brokenness at the heart of it. We have to deal carefully and tenderly with those people that are confused, but we have to recognize the stratagem of the enemy is to normalize the confusion so that he can erase the image of God. But as that little girl grows, the idea of love becomes the dance of romance. And there is a point at which a young man will pursue that young woman. And now there's something glorious that happens. She is wooed and intoxicated and terrified. Because all of the ideas of love are about to get real. And a young woman's heart, in the purity of how we're meant to grow without all the damage of our overly sexualized culture, there are unknown elements that are naturally curious and terrifying in the progression of love. We have raised such a jaded, sexualized generation that there's only cynicism and brokenness because so much was experienced or forced upon them so early. And so tragically, the normal dance of discovery, the glory of that fascination and terror was taken from them when they were molested at 9 years old. When they were introduced to pornography at 13, and so many things we're accelerated. Song of Solomon says, don't awaken love before it pleases. There's a time to this. There's a process of purity that it's meant to unfold in. My point for now is, in the best of all processes, a young woman's heart is not always going to know how to respond to the intensity of a pure and holy masculine pursuit. And so we ourselves, as the beloved of God, encounter a love that's beyond our knowing. I really appreciate what was happening this morning. I just want to feed that a little bit. And what Pastor Nash said, that Bobby Connor said, so good. Exaggerate his goodness. Go ahead, do it. Also do this, exaggerate his love. You can't go farther into the love of God. There's no stopping point. There's no boundary at which you go, well, I've seen it all. Now reverse that and let the torrent of that love come at you. And when that's coming at you and we're broken as we are, we're like, whoa, I don't know. This is kind of intimidating. And our journey of love is learning to trust that torrent of his divine heart for us is fully good, can fully be trusted, and we don't have to back away from it at all.
Come on. So good.
So in the song, which by the way, this is called the Song of All Songs. That's how it starts, the Song of All Songs, which is Solomon's. Now for Scripture to say this is the best song in history, for the Holy Spirit to anoint the word to say, think of all the millions of songs that have been written. It says there is no song like this one. That right there is saying there's a torrent of love coming at you. How many of y'all love songs? I love songs. I'm like Paul McCartney. Some people say the world is filled with silly love songs. What's wrong with that? I'd like to know. So here I go again. I love you. Do, 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 do. We need more of that, not less of that. This is the best of all of them. In Proverbs, it says, there are three things which are too wonderful for me, four which I do not understand. The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on the rock, the way of a ship in the middle of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid. There's a great mystery beyond our knowing. And human love is a small portrait into the intensity of the divine love. So in Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5, says, this is the beloved talking. She says, I am very dark but lovely. You may be very familiar with this verse. I'm very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem. Like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not gaze upon me because I am dark. Because the sun has gazed upon me, has looked upon me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me a keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. That the Shulamite, she's called the Shulamite in the song, the beloved is the Shulamite, that she calls herself dark but lovely is really the interpretive key to the whole book. And there has been a great insight that has come out that's really key, really true, really important. And it is the idea that the Shulamite is saying, I know I have failure. I know I have sin. I know I have darkness. But I believe you still love me. That really matters. It really matters. I just don't think it's the chief intention of that statement. It's an important application. It's an important insight, and I have benefited from it a lot over the course of my life. But I really believe Scripture is meant to interpret Scripture. And she says, I'm very dark but lovely. And then the very next verse, she explains why she's dark. Her darkness is a reference to her sunburned skin, which in verse 6 she describes as the product of all her labor. She is out working hard in the fields, tending the sheep. Her brothers have actually made her do this. She says, I haven't even been able to take care of my own vineyard because my brothers have made me work so hard. And in that period of time, the wealthy would hire the laborers to go work outside, and they would get sun tanned, and the wealthy would stay inside in the shade, and so they were light-skinned. So you knew the workers from the wealthy because of their dark tan or their pale skin. And she's saying, here's the reason I'm dark. I'm a hard worker. And under the initial gaze of love, I'm going to back up in just a minute, but under the initial gaze of love, that immature response, the fear and fascination is actually turning into self-justification. Let me tell you what you're getting here. I'm dark, but I'm lovely. And what she's actually doing, I believe, is boasting in her performance to justify his love. She's feeling that fascination from him. And so I'm kind of starting in the middle, and I'm going to go back in just a minute. She's feeling that fascination, and she can't just receive it. Men, have you ever complimented your girlfriend or your wife, and she's like, oh, no, no, or whatever. You're like, just accept my compliment. Now, I'm not going to make you raise your hands on that one. But if your wife is like my wife, I continually compliment her, and she's continually downplaying it. Because there's something there that's hard to receive unless you feel like you've earned it. And I'm just saying, no, you fascinate me and your beauty captures me, period. When my wife gets out of bed, I'm fascinated. Before the makeup, before the whatever and whatever, I'm like, wow, girl. She's got this beautiful red hair, catches the sunlight, turns to cinnamon glory, and I'm just lost right at the beginning of the day. She's like, man, I haven't done anything. No, you are beautiful. Well, that's the strength of masculine love going, I see so much beauty in you. I'm not going to let you live without the confidence of how lovely you are to me. And that timid, immature response says, well, let me tell you how I deserve that. I can't accept it the way you're giving it. I may be dark, but I think that's lovely. I'm a good worker, and that's worth complimenting. She is appealing to her performance. And that identity and works sets up the core eternal conflict that I believe the rest of the book is trying to deliver us of. Only constant interaction with the lover can overcome this. The Shulamite is bold, virtuous, committed, but her pride and insecurity are in her work ethic. Right from the very beginning, she wants him to relate to her out of what she earns by her performance.